Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum, dear participants. Welcome to this session of textual study of the Quran. Today we'll begin with verse 57 of Surah Araf. As you all know, this surah is a surah that administers the warning to the Quraysh, and it tells them by narrating the various stories of the previous prophets of God and their nation that if they walk in their footsteps, if they follow them, then their fate will be no different. So these prophets of God like Noah and of course Ad and to whom Hud was sent, and Samud to whom the Prophet Saleh was sent, the people of Lot, people of Shuaib. So all these accounts have been narrated, and the accounts that have been narrated show that every messenger, without exception, presented the same message, presented the same invite, gave the same invite to their addressees, and unfortunately these wretched people, they did not accept this, and ultimately they were totally decimated from the face of the earth through various natural disasters. So now in preparation for those accounts, we have these verses starting from verse 57. وهو الذي يرسل الرياح بشرا بين يدي رحمته حتى إذا أقلت سحابا ثقالا سقناه لبلد ميت فأنزلنا به الماء فأخرجنا به من كل الثمرات كذلك نخرج الموتى لعلكم تذكرون. It is He who before sending down His mercy drives forth winds as glad tidings, until when they lift clouds laden with water, we propel it to a barren piece of land and sent down rain there, then bring into existence from it fruits of various kinds. In this manner we shall raise up the dead as well. It may well be that you are reminded. This is a very common nature of argument that you'll find at several places and instances in the Quran. So if you recall that earlier on it was stated that people should devote themselves to God because His mercy is in close proximity to those who do so. Those who devote themselves to God will find His mercy enveloping them. Excuse me. So these words now actually depict a parable to this effect, that people who decide to devote themselves to God, they will find God coming closer to them. So what is being said here is that people should not regard the day to be far off when God's mercy will manifest itself for the whole world. Very soon this event will take place in which God's mercy will be apparent in full splendor. The dead will be raised back to life by God to the benefit, they will benefit from it in the very manner He brings back a dead piece of land to life by sending rain. So clearly what is being said here is that just as this desolate and barren piece of land which has gone dry, suddenly there are clouds, suddenly there's a burst of rain, and then everything lights up, everything becomes fragrant. And in a very similar way, human beings will be raised to life. They have gone, they have disappeared, their bones have decayed, but it is just as God sends down rain and He creates this effect that the dead earth or the infertile earth becomes vibrant once again. In a very similar way, human beings, after having just decayed and decomposed, will once again be brought to life. So this is a phenomena which everyone sees every now and then, and this is a common argument which the Quran employs for people who live, of course, in the rural areas and in the countryside. For them it is a common observation, and this is how the Quran also proceeds with its argument, with its reasoning. It uses these commonplace scenarios and these commonplace scenes that we see, these everyday scenes that we see before us. And if you look, what has been said is that كَذَلِكَ نُخْرِجُ الْمَوْتَى, and then it is said لَعَلَّكُمْ تَذَكَّرُونَ, that these are the signs on the earth of the day of judgment on which the day will be raised to life, the dead will be raised to life. So again, this is a sign that the rain produces life in the dead earth. In a similar way, the day of judgment is going to produce life in the people who are dead. This is the comparison. وَالْبَلَدُ الطَّيِّبُ يَخْرُجُ نَبَاتُهُ بِإِذْنِ رَبِّهِ وَالَّذِي خَبُثَ لَا يَخْرُجُ إِلَّا نَكِدًا كَذَلِكَ نُصَرِّفُ الْآيَاتِ لِقَوْمٍ يَشْكُرُونَ. The land which is fertile produces much fruit and flower at its Lord's directive, and defective land produces nothing but what is defective. Same is your case in the verses of this Quran, and it is said, we show our signs in this manner in a variety of ways for those who want to be grateful. So this again is another simile, another parable, that defective land produces nothing but what is defective, and good land produces nothing but what is good and pure. And just as land which is infertile produces nothing and fertile land produces a lot, same is the case for the human being. The parable has been extended and a reference is made to God's mercy, which has been revealed in the form of the Quran. So not everyone will receive its benefit in the same proportion. So just as when rain falls down, it cannot affect land which is infertile, which is not recipient of that rain. It still stays dry in spite of rain. In a similar way, this rain of the Quran, it falls on everyone, but only the lands of the hearts are fertile, which are fertile, they will produce lush green orchards. And if they are barren inside, if they are totally barren, then if at all, they will only produce weeds and nothing more. So the Quranic words are, La yakhruju illa nakida, that they will produce nothing but what is defective. And while explaining how effective this parable is and how magnificently it depicts the eloquence of the Quran, we can see that it actually conceals many facts. It lays credence to the belief of monotheism. A parallel is also furnished of the possibility of the hereafter and the manifestation of the day of judgment. Similarly, the practice of God about providing guidance also becomes evident. So in other words, all these things, they become evident from this very concise and very, very comprehensive verse at the same time. So this universe has been made by the Almighty in such a way that if a person has a keen eye and a keen mind, every object it bears witness to the facts that the Quran is calling them to profess faith in is something so very evident. Alas, where do we find such insightful eyes and such needful ears who heed what they can see and what they can hear? So the fact that God is one, but the recipients are of different type. He is merciful to saints and sinners alike, but the sinners don't benefit from this mercy. The saints do. People who are righteous, they do. But the rain that falls down in the form of Wahi or in the form of the Quran, it's for everyone. The Quran is not just meant for the believers or the Muslims. It's meant for humanity, for everyone. But it is essential that people must have the ability to absorb it, because in the absence of this ability, the Quran can do nothing. كَذَلِكَ نُصَرِّفُ الْآيَاتِ لِقَوْمٍ يَشْكُرُونَ. We show our signs in this manner, in a variety of ways, for those who want to be grateful. So, لِقَوْمٍ يَشْكُرُونَ, the implication is that it is God's great favor that in the Quran He has directed our attention to His signs in so many ways. Tasrif means in a variety of ways, and human beings should give due regard to it, and as a result, if they want to become grateful to Him, their hearts will also become vibrant. And that is how we have to behave, that is how we have to conduct ourselves, because the Quran has left no stone unturned. It has presented its basic premise. There is one God. We are going to be held accountable before Him one day on the basis of our deeds. This basic premise has been presented in the Quran in such different varieties that one only marvels at how different sets of parables, different sets of similes, different sets of comparisons, they have this very authoritative effect on different minds, because minds, of course, are different, hearts are different, but different parables are meant to accommodate this variety as well. لقد أرسلنا نوحا إلى قومه فقال يا قوم اعبدوا الله ما لكم من إله غيره إني أخاف عليكم عذاب يوم عظيم. So now you can see that the accounts of messengers of God have begun from this verse. Initially there was just a prelude, and we have now started with the account of Noah, who is also called the second Adam. Of course, we know that in his times mankind, the better part of it was destroyed. Those people were destroyed to whom he delivered his message, and they did not accept it in spite of being convinced about it. So, the first thing that is said is that we had sent forth Noah as a messenger to his people. So he called upon them, O people of my nation, worship God. You have no other God than him. I fear for you the torment of a horrible day. Now we know that the adversaries of this surah are the Quraysh. We've just discussed this. So for the purpose of reasoning in these verses, the anecdotes of only those nations are narrated which were known to them. So Noah and his nation was very well known to the Quraysh. And we will note that in all these anecdotes, starting from Noah, and then of course we have other prophets, only the part which is necessary to sound a warning to them is related. It's not the complete account which is narrated. So remember, these accounts are narrated in various surahs of the Quran. They have various stresses and emphasis which are in line with the theme of that surah. But it's not that every surah encompasses a detailed, comprehensive account of a particular prophet. So in order to gather the complete account of a prophet, we would need to look at all the places and all the instances in which one prophet of God has been discussed. Now the implication would be that if they do not profess faith, which means that if the Quraysh do not profess faith as a result of arguments drawn from reason and intellect, and then after Itmam al-Hujjah, which means, of course, conclusive communication of the truth from these messengers of God, they will reach the same fate as was met by the previous nations. And now look at the first thing which he said, which Noah said, O people of my nation, worship God. You have no other God than him. No other God than him. So the message to the Quraysh is clear, that you were given this invitation earlier. The purpose of all the efforts of God's messengers is to make people adhere to the belief of monotheism. They are sent, these messengers are sent to divert people from worshipping others into worshipping God. It is this belief which the Quran has explained and emphasized the foremost. So much so, the last surah of the Quran, with which its last chapter ends, which we know as Surah Ikhlas, is an emphatic declaration of monotheism. God has directed his prophet to openly declare before people that God is the one and only, and he is peerless. He is the rock of all refuge. He is neither father nor son, and none in the heavens and the earth can claim to be his equal. So this belief of monotheism requires that people totally consign themselves to God, acknowledge his oneness, attributes and rights, and ask for his help alone. Also, they must only thank God for his favors, only pray and beseech him in times of affliction, and obviously call upon him in both hope and in despair, and never regard anyone else, whether it's a prophet of God or an angel or a jinn or a saint or any other person, to be a peer of God. So the thing which Noah said at the very start was, Inni akhafu alaykum azaba yawmin azim. I fear for you the torment of a horrible day. Now this warning which he delivered about the punishment which necessarily visits the people if they deliberately reject their messenger is something that he sounded in his own words. It says that if they don't accept this messenger in spite of being convinced about him, then the punishment is going to wipe them from the face of the earth. And we also know it is evident from the Quran that this is in fact the manifestation of God's reward and punishment in this world. And as a result of this, a lesser or a miniature day of judgment is brought about in this world and bears witness to that great day of judgment. So remember, these miniature days of judgment, these lesser days of judgment, because that messenger delivers the truth in its ultimate way, people have no excuse. They are fully, they have no excuse to say that I don't believe, because they are convinced in their hearts. But because of arrogance, because of any other reason, they fail to acknowledge that. So now they are punished in this world. And on the other hand, people who profess faith are rewarded. So this is like a miniature judgment taking place in the life of every messenger. And for the first time that it took place in the face of the earth, it was in the times of Noah. So he was the one in whose times the first of these miniature days were brought about. And he said, قال الملأ من قومه إنا لنراك في ضلال مبين. So these are the elders of his nation. They said that we see you in open error. We see you in manifest error. Their implication is that the Prophet Noah has deviated from the path of his forefathers. He is belittling their religion and furthermore even threatening them of torment. So they were making fun of him. He said that look at this person. He has forsaken our ancestral religion. He does not like it. And he says that we and our ancestors have gone astray. So how can we accept him? Now it is said that قال يا قوم ليس بي زلالة ولكني رسول من رب العالمين. ليس بي زلالة ولكن رسول من رب العالمين, which means that, O people of my nation, I am not in error. In fact, I am a messenger of the Lord of the worlds. I am communicating to you the messages of my Lord. I am communicating to you the messages of my Lord. أبلغكم رسالات ربي وأنصح لكم وأعلم من الله ما لا تعلمون. I am being your well-wisher. I am being your well-wisher and know from God which you do not know. Now this is something which every messenger of God has said, that I know from God what you do not know, which means that I have been sent wahi. I am the recipient of wahi. I have received the divine revelation from God himself, and now it is something that I can talk to you about because I am in communion, in communication with God. And if you don't realize this, then you would one day really regret. Aba ajibtum an ja'akum zikrum min rabbikum ala rajulin minkum liyunzirakum walitattaqu wala'allakum turhamun. Do you express wonder on receiving God's reminder through a person from among yourselves, so that he may warn you and so that you fear God and mercy can be shown to you? So the Quran has raised this question but not answered it. If you look at deeply the context, it's a question that has been raised, which is, do you express wonder on receiving God's reminder through a person from among yourselves so that he may warn you? I mean, this is like a question that is being asked to them, but the reply is not given. This is because the style of the discourse reflects this distaste and longing. What is concealed in this style is that if they had reflected and not been overcome by arrogance and egotism, this phenomenon would have instilled gratitude in them instead of amazement and haughtiness. And the messenger is not something who is alien to them. His past and present and his character and his conduct are right before their eyes because he has lived his life in front of them. He speaks the same tongue as they, and his heart is a representative of their nature. So would it be better that an angel come to them after conclusive communication of the truth, or that a well-wisher like a prophet of God who belongs to their own fraternity bear witness to them? So you see, this is the whole meaning which is concealed in these concise words, that you are lucky to have someone from your own fraternity because he speaks your tongue, he talks to you the way you understand. This is a great, great favor of God. He could have said someone, some alien, someone that you don't even would recognize, but he did not do that. It was his mercy that he sent someone from your own species. فَكَذَّبُوهُ فَأَنْجَيْنَاهُ وَالَّذِينَ مَعَهُ فِي الْفُلْكِ وَأَغْرَقْنَا الَّذِينَ كَذَّبُوا بِآيَاتِنَا إِنَّهُمْ كَانُوا قَوْمًا عَمِينَ. Even then they rejected him. So we saved him and those who were with him on the ship, and drowned all those who had denied our revelations. Surely they were blind of heart and mind. Clearly, we know that the punishment descended only in the area and only on the people of whom Noah had conclusively communicated the truth. So remember when it said, فَأَنْجَيْنَاهُ وَالَّذِينَ مَعَهُ فِي الْفُلْكِ وَأَغْرَقْنَا الَّذِينَ كَذَّبُوا بِآيَاتِنَا. So only those people were killed who denied Noah. It was what the deluge that came was not something that covered the entire earth, as is the impression that we get from the Bible. The Quran tells us that this destruction took place only on the nation of Noah. And we know from historical record that it was the area of Tigris and Euphrates, which is of course in the borders of Armenia, around Mount of Ararat. Even today people can see some signs and vestiges of Noah. And it is evident from these details that we find in the Quran that he actually urged his nation to the truth and conveyed them the truth for 950 years. This is a significant amount of time. It was like a millennium. For a millennium he stayed amongst them and he preached them. But in spite of this prolonged effort, when his people rejected him and were not ready to reform themselves, the Almighty directed to actually asked him to build a ship or an ark. And this was in fact an ultimatum to the people that as soon as this ship has been built, the respite they have been given would end. It would just expire. And we also know from the Quran that when this ark and this ship had been built, all the believers were asked to board it, to embark upon it. And later on, we know a tumultuous storm ensued. The earth was directed to expel all its water to the surface, and the sky was directed to rain down all its water. And such was this rising level of water that it stopped at the point that was appointed for it, it was fixed for it, and all the people drowned who were there. Even Noah's son Canaan, who drowned because of his stubbornness, and he said that, well, I can see a place where I can climb and I can save myself, but La asimak wal yawm, there's nothing that's going to save you. And as the rain thumped down and waves as high as mountains rose up, we know that Noah gave that final call, which is mentioned in the Quran, that please, you still have time, jump into this ship. It was like that paternal love which stirred at the sight of his son standing helpless. But even this dreadful scenario was not enough for his son to give up his stubbornness. And we know from the Quran that he replied that I will seek refuge in this mountain. And Noah warned him that it was not mere water that he was facing, it was the wrath of God, and no one except God could save him from it. So it was during this conversation we know that a huge wave came and enveloped his son and swept him away. So again, this is something which is a very, very big lesson, and that is how the Quran is said that these were people who were blind of heart, which means that their hearts had gone blind. They could see from their eyes, but in fact they could not. They did not have any insight. They could not see beyond what eyes can see, and hence they had lost this comprehension. Now we come to the second of these nations, and this is the nation of Ad, towards whom we know the Prophet Hud was sent. And again, the Quraysh very well knew, they were fully aware of the Ad, the nation of Ad, and the Prophet who was sent to them, who we call, of course, Hud. So the words are, وَإِلَىٰ عَادٍ أَخَاهُمْ هُودًا قَالَ يَا قَوْمِ اعْبُدُوا اللَّهَ مَا لَكُم مِّنْ إِلَٰهٍ غَيْرُهُ أَفَلَا تَتَّقُونَ قال الملأ الذين كفروا من قومه إنا لنراك في سفاهة وإنا لنظنك من الكاذبين. To Ad, we had similarly sent their brother Hud. He called upon them, O people of my nation, worship God. You have no other God than Him. Then do you not fear? The elders of his nation who had taken to disbelief replied to him, We certainly see you inflicted with foolishness, and we surely think that you are a liar. Now, historically, we know that the Ad were the oldest nation of Arabia. So we know that the nation of Noah belonged to the area of Ararat, which is close to Iraq, in the Euphrates and the Tigris River. But in the Arabian Peninsula, the Ad were the oldest nation. And of course, they belonged to the Semitic race. They were Semites. And we know from other instances of the Quran that their land was Ahqaf. This is something that actually was between Ahqaf, and that Ahqaf land lies between Hijaz, Yemen and Yamama to the southwest of Ar-Rubu al-Khali. So this is that historical place that you can see in the map. It is something between Hijaz and Yemen, and Yamama if you look at to the southwest. So in the literature of the Arabs, this land is exemplary for both its antiquity and majesty. The Prophet Hud was a person who belonged to them. He was from them, and he was sent as a messenger to them. So in order to remind the Ad of God's favor, the Quran states that Hud belonged to them, who was like a brother to them. Akhahum Huda, he was someone who was like a brother to them. So the reason that these words have been stated is that they should know that it's their own well-wisher who is talking to them. And what did he say? You have no other God than Him. And then do you not fear? أَفَلَا تَتَّقُونَ? So do they not fear? What does this mean? It actually means that don't you fear that you will meet the same fate as has been met by those who insist on polytheism? But what was their reply? Their reply was again something which is incomprehensible. He said, we certainly see you afflicted with foolishness, and we think that you are a liar. لَنَظُنُّكَ مِنَ الْكَاذِبِينَ. So instead of accepting him, maybe instead of greeting him with open arms, they took to denial. And the implication is that he is observing their splendor and their majesty and advancement and still threatening them of punishment. Now, they meant that their messenger had totally lost his senses and was actually bluffing them through these false warnings. They thought that he was bluffing them. And what did he say? وَلَكِنِّي رَسُولٌ رَبِّ الْعَالَمِينَ. He first said, قَالَ يَا قَوْمِ لَيْسَ بِي سَفَاهَةٌ. O people of my nation, I am not inflicted with any foolishness. In fact, I am a messenger of God. And you must know, أُبَلِّغُكُمْ رِسَالَاتِ رَبِّي وَأَنَا لَكُمَا نَاصِحٌ أَمِينٌ. أَنَّا لَكُمَا نَاصِحٌ أَمِينٌ. So this is something that has been a typist error. So you can read this to be أَنَا لَكُمْ نَاصِحٌ أَمِينٌ. So that is the correct wording. Which means, I am communicating to you the messages of my Lord, and with full sincerity, I am a well-wisher of yours. I am someone who is your well-wisher. I am someone who is not going to ill-wish for you. I am delivering the message of God. It's not something that I'm saying out of my own. It is some message, it is some communication from God. I am just an intermediary. I am bringing you the words of God, and you need to reflect on them and accept them. And I'm your well-wisher, Nasihun Amin, and also I'm a trustworthy well-wisher. You can trust me. أَوَعَجِبْتُمْ أَنْ جَاءَكُمْ ذِكْرٌ مِّن رَبِّكُمْ عَلَى رَجُلٍ مِّنْكُمْ لِيُنذِرَكُمْ وَاذْكُرُوا إِذْ جَعَلَكُمْ خُلَفَاءَ مِّن بَعْدِ قَوْمِ نُوحٍ وَزَادَكُمْ فِي الْخَلْقِ بَسْطَةً فَاذْكُرُوا آلَاءَ اللَّهِ لَعَلَّكُمْ تُفْلِحُونَ. Do you express wonder on receiving God's reminder through a person from among yourselves, so that he may warn you? Remember when we granted you sovereignty after the people of Noah, and made you strong and mighty in physique. So keep in mind the majesties of God, so that you may succeed. So again, you can see that they are being told that you were the ones after the people of Noah, you were made strong and mighty. And this is a very significant distinction that they had. So zadakum fil khalqi bastatan, which means that they had very, very giant figures. They were very prominent in their physique. And we also know from historical traditions of the Arabs that the Ad were very prominent to both these aspects. They had a very strong body and a very strong physique. And the thing which is said to them is, keep in mind the majesties of God so that you may succeed. So what is evident from this sentence is that what is said earlier has both assurance and warning in it, that you must understand this and leave aside those who are our forefathers have been wishing, which we know has been the next part. It says, فَاذْكُرُوا عَلَى اللَّهِ لَعَلَّكُمْ تُفْلِحُونَ, that keep in mind the majesties of God so that you may succeed. Now look at the reply that they gave. قَالُوا أَجِئْتَنَا لِنَعْبُدَ اللَّهَ وَحْدَهُ وَنَذَرَ مَا كَانَ يَعْبُدُ آبَاؤُنَا فَأْتِنَا بِمَا تَعِدُنَا إِن كُنْتَ مِنَ الصَّادِقِينَ. They replied, have you come to us so that we worship only one God and leave aside those who our forefathers have been worshipping? If this is the case, then bring on us the punishment you are threatening us with, if you are truthful. So this was the audacity that they had reached. They said that we don't believe you at all. We think that you are bluffing. We think that you are an absolute liar. And if you are threatening us with the punishment, then bring it to us. We'll see and we'll contemplate and we'll be negotiating that punishment. And because the fact is that you're calling us to a very, very novel thing. You are asking us to believe in one God, and we have been directed by our forefathers to believe in many gods. So how can this be true? So if you are bluffing, because we think you are bluffing, then bring that punishment that you're actually threatening us with. فَأْتِنَا بِمَا تَعِدُنَا إِن كُنْتَ مِنَ الصَّادِقِينَ قَالَ قَدْ وَقَعَ عَلَيْكُمْ مِنْ رَبِّكُمْ رِجْسٌ وَغَضَبٌ أَتُجَادِلُونَنِي فِي أَسْمَاءٍ سَمَّيْتُمُوهَا أَنْتُمْ وَآبَاؤُكُمْ مَا نَزَّلَ اللَّهُ بِهَا مِنْ سُلْطَانٍ فَانْتَظِرُوا إِنِّي مَعَكُمْ مِنَ الْمُنْتَظِرِينَ. So this is what Noah said. Filth has come upon you from your Lord, and his wrath has burst forth. Do you quarrel with me about those names which you and your forefathers have kept, about which God has revealed no sanction? Wait then, I shall also wait with you. So when Noah said these words, that filth has come upon you from your Lord, it is something that they have decided to remain in the filth of disbelief and polytheism. So this filth is actually referring not to anything but to the filth of their disbelief and polytheism. And what is implied is that if they are demanding to see the torment of God, then they don't have much time left. They should think that it is hovering over them. This is because the filth and dirt that rouses God's anger, which is polytheism, is now something that they have fully embraced. After accumulating such a huge pile of this filth, they can only expect God to send to them a thunderous punishment, and that is not far off. So what is being said here is that, do you quarrel with me about those names which you and your forefathers have kept, about which God has revealed no sanction, referring to their deities? These were the beings whom people had made their gods and sought help from them to fulfill their needs. And the Quran says that these are merely names that you have kept. They have no basis. They do not even exist. They are concocted. They have been invented. And so, in reality, there is neither any Lord of rain in them, nor any Lord of wind, or nor any Lord of wealth or health, or any other part of the universe. So it is God alone who is granting them whatever they are wishing, and He's blessing them with these treasures and with these riches. So when it is said that you are doing something about which God has revealed no sanction, we know that this is a very classical argument by the Quran, that if God had any partner, any equal, He would have been the first to tell this and disclose this. And in the absence of this, when God has not revealed any sanction for polytheism, who are human beings to associate partners with Him? Where did they get this information? God should have given this information to them, but He did not. So فَانْتَظِرُوا إِنِّي مَعَكُمْ مِنَ الْمُنْتَظِرِينَ, which means wait then and I shall also wait with you. Of course, there is an element of severe warning in this, which means that you also wait for God's verdict to be passed, and I'll wait with you. And then what happened? فَأَنْجَيْنَاهُ وَالَّذِينَ مَعَهُ بِرَحْمَةٍ مِنَّا وَقَطَعْنَا دَابِرَ الَّذِينَ كَذَّبُوا بِآيَاتِنَا وَمَا كَانُوا مُؤْمِنِينَ. Finally, we saved him and his companions through our mercy, and severed the roots of those who denied our revelations and were not prepared to believe. So this is the fate which actually ensued, that those who were believers, they were actually receiving salvation. They were relieved, and they were actually given this security from God's own mercy. And the other ones, as far as the deniers are concerned, the rejectors were concerned, about them the Quran says, وَقَطَعْنَا دَابِرَ الَّذِينَ كَذَّبُوا بِآيَاتِنَا, that we severed the roots of those who denied our revelations, which means that they were totally routed and they were decimated from the face of the earth. So with this, we come to an end to today's discussion and session. This is ending on verse 72. Inshallah, in our next session, we'll take up verse 73 and beyond. And for the moment, if you have any questions about the passage that we have just studied, you have the time to raise them.
Assalamu alaikum, Dr. Saleem. Assalamu alaikum, everyone. Just a quick rerun of the house rules. Make sure that your questions are pertaining to the passage, and then we'll move on to questions, general questions. So, Dr. Saleem, just a question for you, actually. I was doing some research on Maududi. It seems that they've been able to really trace that there's something there, but the interest for archaeologists to excavate seems to be not as in the forefront. What is your opinion? Is it because they feel that the art could be there, and then that destroys the myth that there was no Noah?
Oh, I mean, you see, this is a big research that people have carried out. We know that it is the mountain range of Ararat, which is found in Armenia, throughout which we know that the Mount of Judi was there, and Noah's ark actually landed there. So, I mean, this is we don't know how long this was, millions of years ago. So, I mean, yes, people have been very inquisitive that this was the area, but remember the time frame is so large that hardly maybe we could have had any chance to find any remains. But yes, of course, the search can always go on. But whether we find the boat or not, whether we find the ark or not, we have a very authentic narration of what happened through the Quran
Right.
itself. So that is what is important.
Okay. Thank you for that. Shabana Ansari, please unmute your mic and ask your question.
अस्सलाम वालेकुम
Well,
डॉक्टर साहब अंबिया जो हैं वो अपनी कौम के बेहतरीन लोगों में से होते हैं और उस जमाने में भी झूठ जो है तो बहुत ही मतलब बुरी आम तौर पे भी जो नोबल्स लोग होते थे उतने बुरी समझी जाती थी, लेकिन ये सारे लोग जो है वो अंबिया पर झूठ का इल्जाम लगाते हैं कि आप झूठ बोल रहे हैं, तो बड़ी तकलीफदेह चीज होती है। और कुरैश में भी लोग जो है वो झूठ को पसंद नहीं किया करते थे आमतौर पे। और इसी तरह ये आबाओ अजदाद वाली बात जो है ये आज तक चली आ रही है कि जो हमारे आबाओ अजदाद करते आए वो कौन सा गलत था, तो आज भी ये सारी दलीलें दी जाती हैं। तो ये इस पर इतना फोकस इसलिए क्यों करते हैं, झूठ पर, कि आप झूठे ही होंगे?
Because you see, they believed their forefathers to be true. I mean, they thought that the ancestral religion was one which they were actually following, which meant that there were several gods. And when someone came with a different message to them and he said that, well, there's just one God, so they just denied him initially and said that you are a liar. How can we think that our forefathers were on the wrong? They were totally right in their approach, and now you have come with a new approach. So they started off by denying their messenger. But the thing which has made this even more grave is the fact that there was a point in time that's what the Quran tells us, for every messenger, for every nation, that yes, initially they had their doubts, but after some time their doubts were totally cleared. They were put to rest, and any disparaging thing that they had in mind about God was alleviated forthwith from them. So they were convinced that there is one God. But even after being convinced that there is one God, because of their arrogance, because of their vested interest, they still continue with this denial. So it is quite understandable that you have questions initially if someone comes with a different message, but then prophets of God, his messengers, they leave no stone unturned. During their ministry, look at Noah, he spent about 950 years amongst them. And as the Quran has specified in Surah Nuh, which is later on in the last chapter of the Quran, we'll study that, you will find how earnestly Noah went about delivering this message. So the thing is that it is perfectly normal to have doubts initially, but however, when the doubts have been put to rest and everything has been cleared, even then if you persist in your denial, and that denial is not based on any argument or any proof or any logical thinking, it's merely emotional affiliation and bias with one's own ancestral religion, and then this has no room in the sight of God.
और आखिर में जाहिर है कि सच को पहचान भी लेते हैं तो फिर उसके बाद खुद झूठ बोलते हैं, यानी अपने आप से झूठ बोलते हैं.
Yes, this is what the Quran says, that initially they have doubts, but later on they are fully convinced. It's not just they know what the truth is, they are convinced in their hearts that yes, the messenger is speaking the truth. And that is what the Quran has said on one occasion by saying, Shahidina ala anfusihim bil kufr, that they bear witness to their own disbelief. They bear witness to their own disbelief. And then, of course, there are verses in the Quran to the effect that in the hereafter, when they will be punished, they will confess their sins and they will say, yes, this is something that we did, but please give us a chance, send us back again, and we'll not repeat what we did. So such will be the nature of this conclusive communication, that they will ultimately acknowledge their charge sheet.
जी, वो तो पूरे फ्यूचर की तस्वीर अल्लाह ताला ने कुरान में खींची हुई है. बहुत शुक्रिया.
Naushad Shafqat sir, please ask your question.
Yes, Assalamu alaikum. Sir, I just wanted to ask, these stories about the prophets are repeated in the Quran at several places. Mm-hmm. One understandable reason is that giving the story of the one prophet in detail would probably bore a viewer. But what could be the other reasons that God has stated these parables at different places in the Quran? And just a small comment, that the destruction of the nation of Noah is also mentioned in the Bible. So I think even if they are Christians looking for the remains, that would also substantiate what is stated in the Bible. Thank you.
Yes, you see, the story that is mentioned in the Bible has been corrected at some places by the Quran regarding almost all the prophets of God. For example, in the case of Noah, the Bible gives us this very strong impression that the whole world was destroyed because of the deluge, the flood that came. And then mankind inhabited the earth once again through the people who were in that ship. But on the other hand, the Quran tells us that only that part of the earth was destroyed, or those people were destroyed who actually were his addressees, and there were other people, other nations who were far off, and it's not that the whole earth was destroyed. But having said that, the reason that we find all these anecdotes not at one place, like the Bible has them in one place, is that because you see, the Quran has presented different I would say, styles of reasoning in different surahs, and every surah has some additional information. A nuance of that information would be found in a particular surah which you will not find in other surahs. So that is why it's only by combining all the areas in which, for example, we have the account of Noah, do we get a complete picture. And the reason that we don't get a complete picture, or it has not been stated at one place, is because the style of the Quran is not like a narration in which some event is narrated. The style of the Quran is that it wants to convey some basic realities through tasrif, and tasrif, as you know, is reminding people by adopting different styles of reasoning. The same thing would be presented in a different style, and some hearts would be very welcoming that type of argument, and some other hearts might not stir or even have any effect upon them. But by having this beautiful style which the Quran calls tasriful ayat, which means presenting its message in a variety of ways. So that is what the Quran does. That it could have done it in a very bland way by presenting that story in just one surah, but that it did not do, because as is the case with the Quran, it wants to address every type of people, every type of person, every type of argument that might get entangled in a person's mind is addressed in different surahs. And that is how the Quran has presented its message, not only regarding the accounts of the prophets of God, but with many other things as well. So look at for example, the arguments that are presented about Tawheed. So one could have argued that, well, Tawheed is a very basic argument or a very basic topic of the Quran, so one chapter or one surah could have been devoted to it. Yes, this is one style, and this is the style of the previous scriptures, but the Quran does not do so, because it's like a vibrant scripture. It addresses you and it makes you think what other people might not think at that instance. For those people, you will have a different argument at a separate place. So it's like selecting every person for a particular surah for which that person is going to be convinced, and then other people can be convinced from other surahs. So it's like of God. Perhaps God had this in mind. I'm just conjecturing that now after this book there's going to be no prophet of God, no other book. So let this book have this very strong effect on people, that all types of people, whether some would be introverts, some would be extroverts, some would be impressed by one type of reasoning, some would be affected by another type of reasoning. So it's like embracing all kinds of people, all types of people, so that somehow they get convinced. And this, of course, I would count as a mercy from God.
Thank you very much, sir. Thank you very much.
Dr. Saleem, I have a chat question. What psychological or spiritual diseases caused the people of Prophet Noah and the people of Ad to reject the truth, even though the message was clear and came with guidance from Allah?
The Quran has commented on this on several occasions, and we know that one of the reasons is arrogance, jealousy, vested interests, affiliation to one's ancestral religion. So all these are biases and prejudices which people have, and we even have them today. Tribal bias, the thing that we cannot be wrong. How can we be wrong? Why should we go against our ancestors? This ancestor worship is something which is the strongest motive not to switch from what we have. We even have it today. Today, when we get to know something new from a person regarding religion, we say that, why should we believe you? You are the first person to say this. Our own ancestors and our own forefathers have said something different. So it becomes a barrier. And God wants us to judge something on the basis of merit, but not because someone in the past has been its advocate. If there have been several advocates of a particular view, but that view does not hold ground, that view is not convincing, and some person comes along and tells you, then this is our test, that we have to decide on merit, not because we have a tribal affiliation, not because we think that we would be going against the tribe's view. So this tribalism, this bias, this prejudice is something that bothers us even today. So people who have brotherhoods, people who live in in societies, in particular neighborhoods in which they have a small asabiya, which means they have prejudice about their own on their own background, they suffer from this, and mankind at large has also suffered from this. So that is perhaps the reason, and that is why the Quran says that our primary job is to be a critical seeker of the truth. It's not that the truth is going to be something that we shall always find from our forefathers. No, it's something that whenever it raises a question in your mind, it could be your own question, it could be someone else's question, you have to investigate yourself, and this is our greatest test.
Thank you, Dr. Saleem. I do not have any raised hands right now pertaining to the passage, so I think we can move to the idiomatic translation and then come back to questions.
Okay, so I'm starting off with verse 57. وَهُوَ الَّذِي يُرْسِلُ الرِّيَاحَ Wa and huwa he, الَّذِي who, yursilu sends, riyah winds. So the singular is rih and the plural is riyah. Bushran, bushran means as glad tidings. Baina yaday rahmati, which means that before, baina yaday rahmati would mean that his mercy, as his mercy. Hatta iza aqallat sahaban, hatta until, iza when, aqallat sahaban. So aqallat means become heavy or laden, sahaban the clouds, sikalan with a weight. So in other words, baina yaday rahmati would mean that before his mercy, before his mercy. So baina yaday means something which is before you, but in the context it would mean before his mercy. So what constitutes his mercy is the rain. So before the rain even comes down, what is being said is that he sends down these winds. These winds bring glad tidings of God's mercy, which is of course rain. And how does this happen? Hatta iza aqallat sahaban siqalan. So aqallat would mean that when the clouds, aqalla mean that they lift them on their shoulders. Aqallat sahaban, what happens is that these winds, they lift the clouds on their shoulders. Aqallat sahaban siqalan would mean that sakalan would mean something which is heavy, and sahab of course is referring to the clouds, heavy clouds. Of course heavy clouds would be an indication that they are moisture laden, they have lots of moisture and they are about to burst. So what will happen? Suqnahu, God says, we send them, li baladin, towards an area, mayyatin, which is dead. So idiomatically it would mean that it is he who sends the winds as glad tidings before he sends his mercy, which means before he sends his rain, until when these clouds lift until when these winds lift the clouds which are heavy, which are laden, of course heavy with water. What happens? Suqnahu, we push them, we push these clouds. Where do we push them? Le baladin, towards a balad, towards an area, mayyit, which is dead. And then what happens? فَأَنزَلْنَا بِهِ الْمَاءَ, then we bring down, bihil ma, with it, we bring forth with it through the water. And what does that happen? That we sent down through it the rain. This water actually refers to the rain. So we sent down rain through these clouds. And what happens then? فَأَخْرَجْنَا, therefore أَخْرَجْنَا, we take out, bihi, through it, through the water, min kulli thamarat, fruits of all kinds. Or in the Arabic word, the fruits or the samarat does not merely refer to fruits, it also refers to crops and vegetation. So God sends down water, and then we take out from that water, what do we take out? Min kulli thamarat, all types of samarat, all types of fruit. Kazalika, in this way, nukhrijo, we will take out al-mauta, the dead, which means that we will take out the dead, or we will make the dead live. La'allakum, so that you, tazakkarun, receive reminder. So what is being said is that just as rain enlivens a dead piece of land, in a similar way, God says, we will bring the dead to life. Nukhrijul mauta, we will bring the dead to life so that you receive a reminder. Wal baladut tayyib, Wa and al-balad area. At-tayyib means fertile. So what about the fertile land? Yakhruju nabatuhu. What does happen? It brings forth its vegetation. Bi-izni rabbihi. With the directive of Lord. Be with izn, permission. Rabbihi, its Lord. So it produces much fruit. In other words, yakhruju, the land which is pure, the land which is wholesome, the land which is fertile, al-baladu tayyib, yakhruju nabatuhu, it brings out nabatuhu, its vegetation, with the permission of God, bi-izni rabbihi. Wallazi khabusa, wa and allazi, he, that which is khabusa, which is infertile. So land which is fertile is called tayyib, and land which is infertile is called khabusa. So khabis or khabusa, that land which is infertile, la yakhruju illa nakida. La, not, yakhruju, comes out, illa, except, nakida, what is defective. So land which is infertile, from it only comes out what is defective, which means only defective crops and vegetation come out of such land. Kazalika, in this way, nusarrifu, we send in variety, al-ayat, signs, liqawmin, for nation, yashkurun, who are grateful. So in this way, we send different signs for those who are grateful. Laqad arsalna Nuha, laqad, indeed, arsalna, we sent, Nuha, Noah, ila, towards, qawmihi, his nation. So indeed we sent Noah towards his nation. Fa, therefore, qala, Noah said, Ya qawm, O nation, u'budu Allah, u'budu, worship, Allah, God, worship God, ma, not, lakum, for you, min ilahin, from among deities, ghayruhu, except him. So there is no other deity except him for you. Inni, I, akhafu, fear, alaykum, upon you, azab, punishment, yawmin azim, of a great day. So I fear for you the punishment of a horrible day. Of course, the word azim is referring to the horror and the great commotion that will take place on that day. Qala, said, al-mala'u, the leaders, min, from, qawmihi, his nation. So the leaders of Noah's nation said, what did they say? Inna, we, lanaraka, in, see you, fi, in, dhalal, deviance, mubin, evident. So these leaders replied to Noah that we see that you are in open deviance, you are totally gone astray. Qala, Noah replied, Ya qawmi, O nation of mine, laysa bi zalala, laysa, not, be, me, with me, zalala, deviance. Deviance is not with me, walakinni, but I, rasulun, I am a messenger, min, from, Rabbil Alameen, the Lord of the worlds. So he replied that I have not gone astray, deviance is not with me, I am the messenger from the Lord of the worlds, Rabbil Alameen. And what do? Uballighukum risalati Rabbi. Uballighukum, I deliver to you, risalat, messages, Rabbi, of my Lord. I deliver to you the messages of my Lord. Wa ansahu lakum, wa, and ansahu, I am a well-wisher, lakum, of you. I am a well-wisher of you. Wa, and a'lamu, I know, min Allahi, from God, ma, that, la ta'lamun, you do not know. So Noah is telling them that I know from God what you do not know. In other words, I receive wahi which you do not receive. Ava ajibtum, do you express amazement? Do you express amazement? And that ja'akum, came to you, zikrun, reminder, min, from, rabbikum, your Lord, ala, upon, rajulin, a person, minkum, from among you. So do you expect this amazement and this astonishment that God's reminder has come to a person from among you, ala rajulin minkum, someone who belongs to your own fraternity. And why? لِيُنْزِرَكُمْ, so that he can warn you. Wa and لِتَتَّقُوا, so that you fear. Wa and لَعَلَّكُمْ, so that you turhamun are shown mercy. So what is being said here, that do you express astonishment that someone has come with a reminder from God and he belongs to you, and what does he do? He warns you and he asks you to fear God. Of course the word God is not mentioned, but tattaqu means to fear, and so that you are shown mercy. Turhamun, shown mercy. Fa, therefore, kazzabuhu, they denied him, they denied Noah. Fa, therefore, anjaynahu, we delivered Noah. Wa, and allazina ma'ahu, those who were with him. So we actually delivered Noah, and we delivered those who were with him. Fil fulk, fi in al fulk, the ship. So we denied, we saved those who were with him in the ship, because they had embarked on the ship. Wa, and aghraqna, we drowned. Allazina, those who kazzabu, denied, takzeeb, bi ayatina, our revelations. So we delivered Noah and those who were with him in the ship, but we drowned those who had denied our kazzabu bi ayatina, denied our revelations. Innahum, indeed they, kanu, were, qawman, a nation, Amin, blind. Because they were a nation blind. Of course they were not physically blind, but the reference is that they were blind in their mind. Wa, and now we come to the story of Ad. We just finished the story of Noah. So the story of Ad, very similar in pattern. Wa, and ila, towards Ad, the Ad, akhahum, their brother, Huda, their brother Hud. So towards Ad, their brother Hud. Of course, what is suppressed here is that we sent. The word we sent is suppressed. That towards Ad we sent their brother Hud. And what did he say? He said, Qala, ya qawmi, O my nation, Ubudullah, worship God. Ma, not, lakum, for you, min ilahin, of a deity, ghayruhu, except him. O my nation, worship God. There is not for you any God except him. Afala, do you not, tattakun, fear? Qala al-malaw, Qala, said, Mala, the leaders, allazina kafaru, of those who disbelieved, min qawmihi, from his nation. So the leaders of his nation who had disbelieved, what did they say? Inna, we, lanaraka, see you, fi, in, safaha, foolishness. They said, we see you in foolishness. Wa, and inna, we, lanazunnuka, we regard you, min al-kazibin, among the liars. We regard you among the liars. Qala, so now Hud replied, Ya qawmi, O my nation, laysa, be, not with me, safaha, foolishness. Not with me foolishness, which means that I am not foolish. Walakinni, but I, Rasulun, am a messenger, min, from, Rabbil Alameen, Lord of the worlds. I am a messenger from the Lord of the worlds. Uballighukum, I deliver to you, risalat, messages, Rabbi, of my Lord. I do the iblag of the messages of my Lord. I deliver the messages of my Lord. Wa, and ana, I, lakum, for you, nasihun, advisor, Amin, trustworthy. I am for you an advisor and a trustworthy person. Awajibtum, do you express astonishment? You can see the similarity of words between the account that is mentioned here and the account of Noah that is mentioned earlier. So, awajibtum an ja'akum zikrum min rabbikum. This is exactly the same verse that was said for Noah earlier on. So, do you express astonishment an ja'akum zikrum min rabbikum, on receiving God's reminder, zikrum min rabbikum, ala rajulim minkum, from a person who was among you, liyunzirakum, so that he could warn you. Wazkuru, wa, therefore, uzkuru, remember, is when ja'alakum, God made you, khulafa, people of sovereignty, min ba'd, after qawm Nuh, the nation of Noah. And so remember, when he made you sovereigns after the nation of Noah, wazadakum, and he increased you fil khalq, in strength, bastatan, and your might. So he made you strong in your physique and in your structure. Fil khalq bastatan. Zadakum fil khalq would mean that he increased you in size, bastatan, quite a lot. This is a literal translation, but idiomatically it would mean that he made you strong and mighty. Fazkuru, fa, therefore, uskuru, remember, Allah, the wonders of God. Keep in mind the wonders of God, la'allakum, so that you, tuflihun, may be given success. Qalu, they said, ajitana, have you come to us, lina'budallaha, so that we worship Allah wahdahu, alone, wa nazara, wa, and nazara, leave aside, ma kana, what, ya'budu, would worship, aba'una, our forefathers. So have you come to us to invite us to the worship of only one Lord, and to leave aside the deities which were worshipped by our forefathers? Ma kanu ya'budu aba'una, what our forefathers used to worship. Fa'tina, bring, bima ta'iduna, what you are promising, in, if, what you have promised, in, if, kunta, you are, minas sadiqeen, a truthful person. So bring what you have promised us, if you are a truthful person. And what was that promise? Of course, it related to the punishment. Qala, so now Hud replied, kad, indeed, waka alaykum, has fallen upon, waka, fallen, alaykum, upon you, mir rabbikum, from your Lord, ritsun, filth, wa, and ghazab, anger. So kad waka alaykum mir rabbikum, has indeed has fallen upon you from your Lord, filth and anger. Atujadilunani. Now, he says, do you quarrel with me? Atujadilunani. Do you quarrel with me? Fi, about, asma'in, names, sammaytumuha, which you have kept. Antum wa abaukum, you and your forefathers both have kept. Ma, not, nazzalallah, revealed by God, biha, about them, min sultan, any proof. So, do you quarrel about me regarding the names that you have kept, you and your forefathers, about which God has revealed no authority? God has revealed, ma nazzalallah biha min sultan, God has revealed no sultan, God has revealed no sanction. Fantaziru, therefore wait. Inni, I, ma'akum, with you, minal muntazireen, among those who wait. So you wait, and I am with you also waiting. Therefore, anjaynahu, we delivered Hud, wa, and allazina, those who, ma'ahu, were with him, bi rahmatin, with our mercy. So we delivered Hud and those who were with him through our mercy, minna, which emanated from us, wa, and qata'na, we cut off, dabir, the roots, allazina, of those, kazzabu, who denied, bi ayatina, our revelations. So we cut off the roots of those who denied our revelations. Wama, and ma, not, kanu, they were mu'mineen, believers, and they were not believers. So with this we come to an end to this literal and idiomatic translation as well, and now you can raise your questions.
If anybody has any questions pertaining to the passage, thank you so much for that, Dr. Saleem. I do not see any raised hands right now pertaining to the passage. If you have any questions, we'll wait for a minute. Otherwise, Dr. Saleem, can I open the forum for open questions?
Yes, please do.
Okay, if anybody has, okay, Amar, go ahead, ask your question.
जी, अस्सलाम वालेकुम, डॉक्टर साहब।
Yeah.
Dr. Saab, I wanted to ask you this question about the age of Prophet Hazrat Nuh, and also that according to the Bible, if I am not wrong, many of the early prophets, such as Adam, and then sort of like his progeny, and the next 10 prophets, most of them have been living for 900 or 800 or around 1,000 years. And so, sir, I want to ask you, how is that possible, and how do we explain that scientifically? What were these people like? Were they a different species? Because certainly, even with today's modern medicine, we do not live that long, and also we don't want to live that long. So I'm a bit confused about that. Seems like there might be some other calendar or time calculation that's going on here. Also, sir, we Muslims do not trust everything that the Bible says. So how come we trust this, and we often quote this because this information is coming to us from the Bible?
So first of all, the foremost information about Noah is something from the Quran. So the explicit words of the Quran are that he preached amongst his people for 950 years. So this 950 figure is not from the Bible, it's from the Quran. And now that we have this figure from the Quran about Noah, now do we analogously think that if Noah was given such a long lifespan, this is easily possible that the other prophets of God who came after him were given a similar lifespan. And remember, the population of those times was not as you can imagine today. People were living far off. There were people who were few. They were spread out. Initially, people came to a particular nation. That nation was not at one spot. They were all sporadically placed. And so they had their own, I would say, logistics. And because we are not used to these, this span of longevity, that it sounds very crazy to us, but it's not that difficult to imagine. Remember, the past had a very different, I would say, ring to it. There are several things that we know about the past, the way they have been preserved. We know that the Ad and the Samud, they were very, very tall and very strong people. We have their remnants in Hijaz and the areas where they inhabited. For example, Ahqaf was the area where the people of Hud, the Ad, they had inhabited it. And even today you can go and see the remnants, the huge structures that they had built. And they had so immense power and prowess that we just cannot imagine. And if you just need to maybe have an example from recent history, you can look at the pyramids. I mean, they have continued to invoke wonder and amazement at how could such huge stones and boulders which weighed so many tons could have been moved to such heights by people who were probably like us. So, I mean, at times human beings, because they are not aware of many things of the past, they feel skeptical, but there is no reason to feel skeptical, because you see, each era has its own type of people, has its own style of people. The traditions are different. And most of all, I mean, the Quran, of course, is an authentic and a reliable source of knowledge. It tells us that Noah probably had the largest lifespan amongst all prophets of God. And 950 is like a millennium. And he has spent, and that is why, if you, by the way, when we study Surah Nuh, which is like in the last chapter of the Quran, he actually prayed that La yalidu illa fajiran kafara, which means that God, I have been with them for centuries, and now I can see that every boy and girl that they give birth to is destined to become a disbeliever. So please don't La yalidu illa fajiran kafara, and then before that, Noah's words are, don't leave a single soul that belongs to them. Don't let it live, because whoever they will give birth to will only be a disbeliever. And that is what we actually saw. So you see, these are the things that the Quran tells us, and this astonishment that we might have today is something that was the norm in the past. And look at, for example, the ark that Noah built, and the deluge that must have come in those times. We cannot imagine the deluge. We cannot imagine the flood that erupted in a better part of the earth, and it swallowed so many, such a bulk of population that was there. And so again, as I said, it's like imagining the past and trusting the book of God.
Dr. Saleem, I have a question. So Ad, Samud and Hud were in the same era as Hazrat Nuh, before, after?
No. It says وَجَعَلَكُمْ خُلَفَاءَ بَعْدَ قَوْمٍ نُوحٍ, which means that they came much after. So Ad is a nation that succeeded the Noah's people after many centuries. Maybe we don't have the time span. So Hud is not a nation. Hud is the prophet that was sent to Ad. Samud is another nation that succeeded Ad. after some time, and to the Samud, the Prophet Saleh was sent.
Okay. Okay. Thank you, Dr. Saleem. Shabana, please ask your question.
डॉक्टर साहब जो इसमें आद की जब इनको जो सजा दी थी तो उसमें अल्लाह ताला कहते हैं कि वो खजूर के तनों की तरह पड़े थे, तो वो उनकी लंबी हाइट की वजह से खजूर के तनों की तरफ रेफर किया.
Correct. Yes, this is something that is mentioned at several places in the Quran. For example, in Surah Fajr, it is said, "Lam yukhlaq misluha fil bilad." That the way they had been created is unparalleled. So this shows that they had, a big physique, and yes, ka'annahum ajazu nakhlin khawiya. That's what Surah Haqqa tells us, that they lay on the ground as if they were hollow stems of palm trees. So yes, this is also a reference to their tall height, and that is what we know from the Quran as well.
डॉक्टर साहब क्या कुरान में जिक्र है या रिवायात में है कि जब सारे लोग खत्म हो चुकेंगे तो उसके बाद भी एक बारिश बरसेगी और सारे के सारे जो है वो जिंदा हो जाएंगे, कुछ ऐसा है या वो सूर वाली बात ही?
I don't think this is any authentic information. We recently studied in our other class that the end of times, when there would come, the signs of the proximity of the day of judgment, we studied them in detail. There is no such thing that you have just mentioned.
क्योंकि सूर का जिक्र है ना, सूर फूके जाने का कि एक बार.
So that is something that will herald the arrival of the day of judgment. So the trumpet will be blown, people will then arise from their graves. So the first trumpet will signal the death of people who are alive, and the second trumpet would signal the time when every dead soul would be raised to life. So we have two instances of trumpet blowing.
जिनका कुरान में जिक्र है.
Yes.
Samina Naim, please ask your question.
Assalamu alaikum ji. I just wanted to know if this Qawm-e-Aad were the descendants from Hazrat Nuh's, the people who survived that. Were they the descendants of Hazrat Nuh?
This is something that we cannot have certain knowledge of, but it does seem so, because they were Semites. They did belong to the Semitic race, and the Semites, of course, were from the children of Noah. So Sam was one of his sons, and because the Aad are Semites, so it's quite probable that they are from his son Sam.
Thank you.
If anybody else has any questions regarding the passage, I can take them now. Otherwise, I'm going to be opening the forum for open questions. We still have some time left.
Dr. If we look at the different ages of prophets that have been stated in the Bible, then there is a very clear distinction between the ages of the prophets before Noah. For example, Hazrat Adam has been in the Bible. He has been given the just give me 1 second, sir. Given the age of 930, and then Seth is to 912, and then Canaan is 910. So generally speaking, the ages are quite long. Yeah. These people are living for almost, like you say, 1,000 years. Right. But then after this major flood happens, there is a very drastic reduction in the average age. And the way ChatGPT is describing it is that before Noah, the ages of the prophets is 700 to 900, whereas after Noah, it's around 120 to 150. And then by the time of Moses, it's 120, and then it diminishes further. Can we say that because of the flood, there was some seismic change in the nature or in the flora, fauna, or the atmosphere of the earth?
See, this is not a study. This is not it does not lie in the scope of religious study. This is more related to anthropology and sociology. So anthropologists and sociologists, this is their field. That how did ages get reduced, or what was the exact time? And the Bible just gives you a piece of information. And that information, if you rely on it and you get this trajectory that yes, gradually these ages were reduced, then again, as I said, this is not a topic that the Quran or any religious book would cover, because it's something that is outside its ambit, and it would relate more to anthropological studies.
Ji sir, thank you.
So Dr. Saleem, I do not have any text questions or any raised hands right now. So we'll just end the session and inshallah we'll reconvene next Saturday.